All right. It is way, way too early in the season to take stock in how a team is doing. But let's do it anyway.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to a Locked On MLB crossover between Locked On MLB and Locked On Pirates. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, thanks to you, is the #1 sports podcasting network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Well, as I hinted, this is not a regular Locked On MLB show. This is indeed a crossover. We are crossing over, but not with John Edwards, not even a little bit. We're here with the host of Locked On Pirates, a team that I find, well, the history of the Pirates is one of my favorite things to read about in baseball. And this team has a sense of urgency in 2026. And no better person to talk to about than Gary Morgan, the host of Locked On Pirates. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Paul. How you doing, man?
Who? What did you just call me?
Sully.
I literally said, please call me Sully.
You
and
did.
Then you didn't, you know what? That's
well, I got crossed
Gary,
up with
thanks
John.
for joining the show. But anyway, so Gary is okay. Do you know what? Okay, you've been punished long enough. There you go, Gary.
I got John Edwards. I think it's fair.
That's true. That's true. There you go. Yes, that is, by the way, you don't want to give me the buttons to put people in timeout. Gary, the Pirates are a team that I made the comparison last year that they were the person with the rundown house and a Lamborghini in front of it when they had a team that was a non-contender but had the Cy Young Award winner on the club. This is a club that has had only a handful of winning seasons since the advent of the wild card. This is a team where there is a tremendous amount of pressure, I think, for them to put a winning product on the field. But before we delve too much into them specifically, I also think this is an opportunity for them to contend because while the Brewers are off to a terrific start, and you underestimate the Brewers at your own peril, there is enough wiggle room in the National League, both in the Central and the wild card spots, that the Pirates could, if they put together a winning season, they got a good chance of making the playoffs. Tell me what you think of the National League, how they got out of the gate, and are there any teams that have stumbled out of the gate that you think are really stumbling, or some just had a bad first 10 games?
I think the Cubs are probably a false stumble, but the injuries are stacking up for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you can afford to lose a lot of ground in the National League because I do think there's a lot of good teams.
Mm-hmm.
Pirates, to me, are right there on the border of like making the wild card. And I think they probably have a ceiling of winning the division, frankly, if everything comes together. The Cubs, I don't know. They've been supposed to for years. I don't know what's going to happen with them this year. I think they could easily wind up in third place or fourth even in this division, or first.
Right.
But I think it's a false stumble on their part so far. The Braves, I think, are incredibly hot, probably a little over their heads right now. Everything else, I pretty much feel is going chalk. The Giants maybe are a little worse than I thought they were.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and for a fan base like the Pirates, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to scan the horizon because it's not all just about the Central. We all saw what happened last year with the Cincinnati Reds, who were a team that were good last year. I'm not going to trash them as a team, but the fact that they were able to sneak in under the wire because of, people point out the disappointment of the Mets, and of course the Mets had the massive payroll and everything like that. But let's not discount also the disappointment of Atlanta last year. I mean, that was one of the other factors that came in last year, was that the Braves kind of stumbled about and then they never really recovered. The Mets got off to an unbelievable great start, and then they pulled a wily coyote. The Dodgers and the Brewers have gotten out of the gate really hot, and no one else has gotten out of the gate like scalding hot, which I find really interesting. So if you're a Pirate fan looking for that elusive relevancy, then you got to take the temperature of, are the Padres, a team like the Padres, who obviously were very good last year, but if they take a step back, or Philadelphia takes a step back, or St. Louis can't get out of their own way, it's one of those situations. And every year there seems to be a team. A few years ago was the Marlins, and last year was Cincinnati. You go like, how the heck did they get in the playoffs? It had as much to do with other teams stubbing their toe as much as it was for them having a great year.
For sure. And I mean, I think that the Pirates have put together a team that most nights you're going to feel like they have a good chance to win. I think their rotation is good enough that every night you're stacking up somebody that could be someone else's number 2 or 3 against whoever they have. So yeah. I think that automatically makes you feel like you're in everything. And the hitting, it's better. It's better.
I think that I am not a lot of people have thrown tomatoes at me for saying this, but this is 2 straight years I'm not picking the Mets to make the playoffs. And Met fans think that it's personal. It's nothing personal. I have nothing against the Mets. But I do look at their teams that the 2 teams that I'm looking at going, man, if they fall in a house of cards, it's going to open the doors for the Pirates. And those 2 teams are Atlanta and San Diego. And now I wound up picking Arizona to be a playoff team this year because I like their pitching. And I think that there are going to be some of these veteran teams that, fall down the way Atlanta did. But the Central is a strange division. Right now, of course, the Brewers are off to a great start. Of course, they're the ones who start the year 8-2. But for a year, and I say this every year on a broken record. In the second segment, we're going to break down the Pirates and their real chances. But I say this every year, and every year people look at me askance, and every year I'm right. That if you get off to a good start, those are games you don't have to make up for later. And you should always put the best product on the field, the best players on the field. You shouldn't have your best players playing in the minor leagues if they're healthy, then they should be in the major leagues, because every win you squeeze out of April is a win you don't have to squeeze out of September. And gee whiz, I wonder if the Mets wished they squeezed 1 or 2 extra wins, or last year the Astros wished they squeezed 1 or 2 extra wins out early in the season. Well, the Pirates are off to a winning start after the first 10 games, which is about 1/16 of the season. They have, for the remaining 15/16 of the season, if they can keep this up, then, all will be well. We come back. I do want to talk to you because I think the Pirates are doing a couple things that make me think, especially because they stumbled. They didn't have the best few games out of the gate. That make me think, maybe something might go on this year. All right, let's talk about our good friends over at, who's our sponsor? Let's talk to our good friends over at FanDuel, because, oh boy. Now, last night, my mother's beloved alma mater did not get the job done for the NCAA tournament. My mom is a proud graduate of UConn, but the NCAA playoffs, they're done. Now it's time for the big boys. And the NBA playoffs are right around the corner. Every possession matters. Every matchup is magnified. And every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Now, you can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it so easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you are looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. So what you need to do is you need to head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Hey, I want to first of all say thanks so much for listening. And with baseball back, it's finally time to come and celebrate. And I'm going to give you a full month of the Everydayer Club for free. Go to lockedonmlb.supercast.com or lockedonpirates.supercast.com and use the code FINALLY. You'll unlock every episode ad-free and get access to our private listener chat group. Tap the link in the show notes and use the code FINALLY to claim your free month. All right. Well, finally, the Pirates are bringing some of their young players up. And it's, the Pirates, of course, had a history of, I'm not going to try to rub it in, not always drafting the best. But they obviously managed to hit one out of the ballpark with Paul Skenes. And now Mr. Connor Griffin has come up and looks like he may be something for real right now. Tell me the temperature of Pirate fans right now and what they're thinking about the team and how, with some of these young players that they've brought up.
Yeah, I think mostly tentative, good feelings. I think everybody enjoys the start. I personally have been selling it to my audience, best way I can put it. They're not even really firing on all cylinders right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Marcelo Ozuna has done nothing yet. I think they've had a stumble from Paul Skenes. You certainly don't expect that in the opening day game. Bubba Chandler has struggled to get past the fifth inning, with some control issues. But aside from that, everything is working. They're pushing all the right buttons with the bullpen. The bullpen's been lights out, really, after opening day. So is the rotation for the most part. Even Bubba, I just complained about, he just gave up his first hit in his second game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's good, and the depth is there. They've got more guys that could push their way onto this roster, and there is no room for them. There just isn't. And I have not been able to say that in a decade. So
No, not for a long while. By the way, as of right now, the starting pitcher on the Pirates with the highest ERA is Paul Skenes, but that's probably not going to last too much longer. But I can imagine there was a collective gulp in all of Piratedom at that Game 1 disaster in against the Mets. But he dusted themselves off. He didn't look like a Cy Young winner the next time, but he at least was like, the thought was, oh my God, is he hurt? I mean, I think that's obviously the first thought I had was Paul Skenes pitched slightly better than I would have. Let's hope that he's okay. And so far,
the game, there was a little bit more to what happened in that game than Paul Skenes pitching. He didn't pitch great. I'm not saying that. He definitely lost control, but
the defense is terrible.
They had some defense behind him that definitely extended that problem. He gets out of the first if those plays are made. Who knows what happens beyond that. I'm not even going to predict they would have won the game, but there's a good chance Paul Skenes rights the ship in between innings. He usually does. So I don't think we were too panicked about it, really, Sully. I mean, we've seen enough of Paul Skenes at this point to not be scared. Mitch Keller, however, looking like a Cy Young candidate early on, that I did not have in the books. I had Braxton Ashcraft as my breakout candidate, so I totally expected what he's doing. But,
No, Keller to me, 10 games in, way too early to really do an evaluation. But Keller's pitched 2 terrific games. And, Ashcraft, I mean, Keller's a veteran, and he's talented. Ashcraft, you're just hoping that he turns into a solid, good number 3. And if Skenes can be Skenes and their bullpen is the way it is, I mean, that's one of the elements that you're like, all right, they're going to pitch. And you mentioned it before, when you put yourself in a situation where you're having a solid pitcher just about every game, then it's gonna make it so if you're a Pirate fan, and I don't care what anyone says, there is a certain amount of parity in baseball right now. There's a certain amount of, maybe not the spending of the Dodgers versus the Marlins or versus the Sacramento A's at this point, but if you're a decent team, you have a shot to make the playoffs. And if you have a shot to make the playoffs, look at the Phillies, look at the Diamondbacks, look at the Braves in 2021. Just have a couple of decent weeks, and the Pirates could finally, actually do something. Um, Squeeze as many decent starts as you can get out of some of these pitchers, and you're going to see them go far.
And even if one of them falters, you got Jared Jones probably coming back in May, June. You've got 3 or 4 more other big arms like Antoine Kelly and Wilbur Dotel and Harrington they could call up to start. I mean, they're at least 8 deep in starting pitching. I mean, the Reds are just as deep. I compare us to them a lot. They've got a lot of that top end pitching as well. I think ours is just a little more evolved.
Yeah. And I think that there is that sort of that promise of, okay, when Skenes starts to fire, and now full disclosure, we're recording this on the 7th in the afternoon of the 7th, so the Pirates are playing San Diego. You all know the result of this, or who knows, maybe I'll post this before the game begins, but Pavetta is throwing for San Diego, and he's obviously a talented pitcher. But you look at these next 2 games, you got Skenes and you got Keller, and you're going up against San Diego, who is a team that has been a playoff team the last bunch of years. And these are the types of wins. I know it's weird to say this because we're still in early April, but these are series you got to win, because who are you really going up against for a playoff spot? You're either going, obviously Milwaukee right now is off to the best start. I picked the Cubs this year. I know a lot of people did. If you're really trying to aim for a wild card spot, then you got to go throw your elbows around when you're playing potential wild card teams. And look at who their next 5 games are against: 2 against San Diego and 3 against the Chicago Cubs. And they got Skenes pitching this afternoon. I say this afternoon because I'm in California. And then tomorrow, which is a day game, so it'll be in the morning here. By the way, that's the best part of California. 9:30 in the morning start. And guess who has spring break from school this year? So I can actually, this week. So I can, 9:30 in the morning, I can watch Michael King versus Mitch Keller, which is a really good pitching matchup. And then off they go to Wrigley. I think they have a day off on Thursday. And then they go to Wrigley for a bunch of day games in Wrigleyville. If they could win these 2 series, I'm not saying that they should start, queuing up We Are Family and everything like that. But the more of these head-to-head series you win now, those accumulate, especially if it turns into, well, they had a better record against this team or better record against that team, could determine where you get in, whether or not you get into the playoffs. Knuckle down and don't play dumb defense. Don't drop the ball. And these are types of series that will add up.
I mean, for the most part, they're playing pretty good baseball. Connor Griffin helps the defense immediately. He's not really taken off with the bat yet, but he's really, really helped up the middle defense. O'Neal Cruz, work in progress still.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's been a couple bad plays, but
yeah,
for real, he's actually improved. He really has. He is moving in better directions. You can tell he's worked with Kiermaier because he's cutting off his right fielder and left fielder just like Kiermaier always did. And it's frustrated Ryan O'Hearn and Bryan Reynolds and almost caused errors, but he is doing what he was coached to do. So to me, the coaches need to step up and figure that out. Ryan O'Hearn's been fine. Everyone was worried about him playing the outfield, but he's been fine. Ryan Reynolds had an error last night that wasn't called an error because scorers don't do that anymore for some reason. But he should have caught the ball. I don't even know what happened to him. It certainly wasn't any sun, just lost it. Maybe it was a wind gust. That's uncharacteristic to him too.
Well, When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the Pirates offense and also some fearless predictions and what would constitute a successful season.
Hey, this is Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, and when it comes to our futures, we all have great ideas when it comes to our job, when it comes to our house, when it comes to our vehicles, all that great stuff. But honestly, when it comes to securing that future, I don't know what I don't know. And when me and my wife sat down to figure out the life insurance thing, Ethos made everything simple. Everything's online, you have a quick and easy application process, and you find out exactly what you need for coverage all in one spot. Ethos makes everything so convenient when it comes to learning about your own life insurance, because insurance is something that is far beyond batting average or on-base percentage. It's way out in left field for me. Ethos made it all easy. Take just 10 minutes and get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/lockedonmlb. That's ethos.com/lockedonmlb. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
All right, we're back here. Now, we talked a little bit about the arrival of Connor Griffin. Okay, so he hasn't jumped out of the gate in his first 5 games he's played.
I think it's 4. Yeah.
4 games at this point. But he does have an extra base hit already.
Yep.
But he also just is. There's a couple of things. He's on the team now, and it's like, okay, the hope of the future. He's here, and maybe he'll learn a little bit on the job. But he's also he could do the job defensively. I don't think anyone questions that. When you're dealing with a lot of quality pitching, you got to be able to handle that. Brandon
Lau,
God, it's a coin toss. I got a No Country for Old Men that it's a coin toss. Harvey Denton. So yes, it's Brandon Lau. He's gotten a couple big hits so far. Cruz has got a couple big hits so far. O'Hearn, you mentioned, he's probably been the most consistent bat they've had so far.
Him or Cruz, yeah.
And it's funny that the big hope of the future used to be Henry Davis. We're not sure what's happening with him. What is the deal with Henry Davis? He was supposed to be the big, building block, number 1 overall pick. And it's just so far.
I bet he's a Gold Glove catcher.
Yeah,
I bet he's a Gold Glove catcher this year.
All right,
he's great defensively. I mean, great. Offensively, starting to come along. He's hitting the ball the other way. He's had, I think, 4 or 5 hits this year. I mean, again, it's early on, and catchers don't play every day. He's done some good things. Doubles, a couple of them pretty big. I think he has 4 or 5 RBI already, and he's hitting all the way like 8th or 9th most nights. So he's contributing. I really, as long as Henry can play the defense he's playing, and I'd like to see him evolve into somebody that can pop 15, 20 home runs, because he has that kind of power. I don't think he's ever going to hit for average, but if he could just add that power and give you like that freak Austin Hedges type season where he just goes off, that to me is what I think you can get out of Henry Davis long term. Defensively, though, I'm telling you, Sully, I've watched a lot of catchers. Jacob Stallings, he's the best one I've ever watched.
Well, you know what? I think when you have, it's funny, we bring up Merrill, we bring up Davis as their 2 sort of, high draft picks who are coming up on the team, and we're praising their defense and we're praising their pitching. So what you really need is you need someone to step up and overperform offensively somewhere, so you can have 2 of your spots be, defensive only. I very cruelly pulled up the draft in 2021, and probably the best player so far out of that draft has been Jackson Merrill of San Diego, who was picked number 27 overall.
Yeah, it wasn't a very great draft.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. But it's 2021, so yeah, it's 5 years ago. So it's okay to say 5 years later, Jackson Merrill, who's a good player, not nothing wrong with him. Sal Frelick, Gavin Williams, Matt McLean, Colton Cowser, Marcelo Meyer, Max Muncy. No, not that Max Muncy, the other Max Muncy. Yeah, there's not been a superstar who has burst out so far. So whenever there's a number 1 pick overall that we're talking about, he's a really good defensive player and everything. He's I guess you can just.
The Pirates don't need everybody to look to Connor Griffin to save this thing. That's what I think is important this year. He's getting called up with room to grow. He's not being called up, asked to like help tow this thing up the hill by himself. He gets to kind of sit at the bottom and set everybody, spot everything. And if he breaks out, great. That's what you hope for. And then, you can really do some crazy things. But, I don't need him to do that in order for it to be a success with him anyway. I do think it's important to point out, we've made fun of the Pirates for how they've done this and everything. And it sucks that they don't spend money. I say this all the time. You're not shocking me with all that stuff. But they've drafted every one of their starting pitchers. All of them. Yeah. They're all homegrown. They've got a ton of this team that's homegrown, and that doesn't happen without all of the crap we dealt with.
Right.
So I don't want to crap on that entire thing because we wouldn't be here in a position where $100 million makes a team look like this.
Well, I'm not necessarily crapping on them. I mean,
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying I won't.
Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, I think if like in so many ways, Bryan Reynolds is a big linchpin of this team right now. Because if he starts to hit, if he starts to have the type of year when they signed him to that contract extension, they were expecting a certain level of production from Reynolds, the kind he was giving them when he was an all-star twice over with some decent home run totals and decent OPS. They need that player to show up because we know they can pitch and we know they can field. Mm-hmm. So we just need someone. I don't even think they necessarily need mashers. They need guys who could, this guy, I mean, Reynolds led the league in triples at one point in his career. They need guys who can just hit balls into the gap and drive in those 2 or 3 runs a game because that's what they're going to need. And they don't have an MVP candidate offensively on their team. I don't care what Marcell Ozuna does. I don't care what Ryan O'Hearn does. But wait, who do you hung on me for?
Oh, no, Cruz. Okay. Look at what he's doing early on here, man. And he's hitting lefties crazy right now.
All right.
Crazy. All right. He's got like an over 1,000 OPS against lefties right now. I mean, he's hitting everything. I think O'Neal Cruz is going to break out this year offensively. I hold no hope for him to become a great defender ever. But offensively, yeah.
Well, by the way, as someone who's half Irish in my ancestry, I'm half Irish, half Italian. My heart grows when I see all the Irish names and all the Irish players like O'Neal Cruz, Marcell Ozuna, Ryan O'Hearn. I mean, it's like it's like a bunch of leprechauns on this team, and it makes me fill my head with pride there. And by the way, Pirate fans, it's Jake Mangum, not Magnum. Because only the first 400 times I said his name last year, every time I said Jake Magnum, as in Tom Selleck.
They're calling him Magnum PI here. So,
well,
yeah.
And by the way, also you have another player who my family, most of my family lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I have several relatives, both on my side and my in-laws, who lament the loss of Joey Bart, and you would have thought that they gave up on Willie McCovey. They would have like a beloved. Why isn't Joey Bart on the team? I miss Joey Bart. I'm thinking like Joey Bart. Let me put it this way.
They could have him back if it was up to me, but
Henry Davis is not hitting the cover off the ball, but there's no way he's losing his spot in the lineup to Joey Bart at this point.
No, Joey, man, when we picked him up off waivers, he was great. I mean, He was great. He was hitting clean up for us. Not that it was a lot of competition at the time,
Yeah.
for hitting cleanup, but he was
You
popping
batted
everything
seventh
over
at
the
the
wall.
time. Yeah.
He was great. And
Yeah.
defensively last year he was terrible and just didn't hit. Defense a little better this year, still not hitting. I don't know. I think Andy Rodriguez probably going to push him out of the way at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Flores, who they got from the Yankees. They're both ready.
And they'll go to the Giants. He'll go back to the Giants.
Maybe.
Where what it is? It's one of those when he took over full time as the Giants starting catcher after Buster Posey called it a career. It may not have been right after, but like he hit double digit home runs, and he was young, and he was called the heir apparent of Posey, and he was the second pick overall, and so there was all this, it was kind of like the hype.
Yeah.
And so when he came up, okay, here it is, and it just didn't happen. I mean, look, he's a major leaguer, and that's more than I can ever say. But it's so funny that your first impressions and people get so attached to certain players.
It's funny with catchers too, though. I mean, look at how young catchers, they come up as these offensive stars, like Adley Rutschman, even right now. He's struggling offensively. Over time, you expect it. Like you expect Rio Muto to kind of fall off as a hitter now, but he maintained it for quite some time. That we haven't had a catcher like besides Will Smith that I can think of that has just held it. Maybe the guy up in Seattle whose name is escaping me for some reason right now.
Raleigh.
Yeah.
Cal Raleigh,
maybe he will. Maybe he'll sustain it for a while, but I don't know how much he catches.
Well, he's the everyday catcher. I mean,
does he catch every day? I would watch the Mariners very often.
Well, I mean, last year he caught. Last year he caught 121 games.
Yeah, so that would count to me if he could maintain it. But we don't have a lot of those in the league right now. Really.
By the way, this is not much to do with the Pirates or anything, but it's something I remember my dad, may he rest in peace, said to me once. Because this was around the time my dad was a rabid San Francisco Giant fan, and he was seeing that there was like 2 or 3 days in a row that Buster Posey was playing first base instead of catching. And he said to me, how was it when Roy Campanella would catch 154 games year in and year out? But now they can only catch 110 to 120 games after playing in first base. And I quickly went to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of planet Earth, to make sure what I was about to say was correct. And I said, Dad, I can answer that question for you, why Roy Campanella caught 154 games year in and year out and Buster Posey didn't, but you're not going to like the answer. The answer is he didn't. He caught about 110 to 120. And they had their backup catchers catch the other days, and those other days he would play the outfield or first base. But it's one of those. In my day, everybody's got no, they didn't. Yogi Berra played a lot of games in the outfield and first base. Carlton Fisk would designate hit and sometimes even play third base or first base. Johnny Bench didn't catch. Mike Piazza didn't catch 160 games. You can't.
Right.
Yeah, and no matter what era you're going to look to, maybe you'll find an outlier. I found out that there was 1 year Roy Campanella caught 150 games. I think he was hurt the next year. So it's kind of yeah. So no one's going to catch. You can't catch more than 130 games a year. It's going to kill you. And that's why you have to have a good backup, which is why Joey Bart is going to be so beloved in Pittsburgh.
He was. I think he'll be pushed aside. I really do, because they'll want some offense from the position, and if you already have a defensive stalwart as your starter, then your backup can afford to be a little more offensive oriented. I think that's a good mix you can go with, and either of the options the Pirates have in the minors, Flores or Rodriguez, could fill that bill. I would love for Bart to prove me wrong.
Yeah,
but I just haven't seen it.
Well, I think the best thing, in conclusion, that happened to Pittsburgh is just play smart baseball. Just play, we've been emphasizing the defense and the quality pitching. Don't make errors. Don't make stupid plays. Don't give games away. Of course, everyone's going to lose, 3 out of every 10 games. I don't care how great you are. It's going to happen. And there's just some days you're not going to have it. But Don't make this like with the game that Skenes got crushed at Citi Field was as much to do with the lousy defense as it was to Skenes. I, of course, got worried going, oh, don't be hurt because of the World Baseball Classic. It just turned out he had a rotten day. Even Steven Spielberg made 1941. Everyone is allowed a bad thing. But the main thing, if the Pirates just play smart baseball and don't, this is what has sunk the Sacramento A's and the Oakland A's the last 2 years, is that one lousy month. Avoid that one disastrous month. And they got I think they got a real good shot at 84, 85 wins this year, which could punch their ticket to the playoffs.
That's where I got them. 85 wins is what I called. So, I mean,
yeah,
I just think they have the starting rotation to not have those drastic drop-offs. But then again, listen, I thought the Red Sox did too. And look, they've started, 2-7? So
2-8, 2-8.
So, well, I'm just saying, like, you can slump with a great rotation too. So,
yeah,
it all has to come together to some degree. I worry a little bit about Don Kelly's inexperience, honestly. But we'll see. We'll see how they play it out.
We'll see. Well, look, Gary Morgan, where can people follow you on your show?
Well, Locked On Pirates, of course.
There
Gary Mo 2007 on just about any platform you can think of. You'll find me. And then I'll talk to you.
We got a mailbag episode coming up right now on the next show. I'm going to be hanging out in the Discord a little bit later. But thanks so much for tuning into this crossover between MLB and the Pirates. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully on Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Join that Everydayers Club. Locked on MLB.supercast.com, Locked on Pirates.supercast.com, ad-free, members-only Discord access, and more. And check out the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. Have either Locked On MLB or Locked On Pirates be your second listen. And also check out the In Memoriam video that I produced and edited that's in the notes to honor those who we lost since opening day 2025. Talking about the Pirates, who have images of a World Series for the first time since Jimmy Carter was president, with Gary Morgan of Locked On Pirates. This has been a crossover. I am Paul Francis Sullivan, but please, 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 unlike Gary, you can call me Sully.